Very good. Yeah, very good. And glad you people are still on and your patience. Thank you for your patience. And hopefully.
Okay, it's on YouTube.
Very good. It's on YouTube. All right. Okay. Uh, wonderful.
Who's
All right.
YouTube so we can let them know who's YouTube, Haru?
Okay.
Black Learning Channel.
Okay, let me let them know on this. Okay.
All right. All right. We're ready. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome again. Greetings to another feature of the Freedom Friday Forum on today, the 23rd of March, of May, I'm sorry, 2025. Yes, we have had quite a bit of issues with our technical side, but and on top of that, our our guest has had an accident and has not been able to get to his studio yet, but he said that he will be on. So we're gonna carry on until he gets here. So I thank you for your patience, and let's start with our rituals. This being the UNIACL, the Rehabilitating Committee, 2020. You know, we like to do things. Maybe it may look like the OG way of doing things, but of course, it's necessary for us to understand that the seriousness of being part and parcel of the UNIACL. So I will open with the official pledge to the flag, and secondly, with the Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution. All right. Official pledge to the flag. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the liberation of her scattered black children. I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism, and I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people, in order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail until all Black people are free and united to one God, one aim, one destiny. And so, folks, just, it could be a real daily recital when you're really serious. So, preamble of the UNIA-ACL Constitution is also another part of what our ancestors have given us in the 20s, at the first convention that they had in New York and in 1920. And that preamble, it works for us to this day. It's our standard of which we have to share with everyone else. The Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League is a social, friendly, humanitarian, charitable, educational, institutional, constructive, and expansive society, and is founded by persons desiring to the utmost to work for the general uplift of the Negro peoples of the world. And the members pledge themselves to do all in their power to conserve the rights of their noble race and to respect the rights of all mankind, believing always in the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. The motto of the organization is one God, one aim, one destiny. Therefore, let justice be done to all mankind, realizing that if the strong oppresses the weak, confusion and discontent will ever mark the path of man. But with love, faith, and charity towards all, the reign of peace and plenty will be heralded into the world, and the generations of man shall be called blessed. And so that is our preamble. And again, I thank you for being here with us on this day. You know, this is African Liberation Month. In a few days, we'll be celebrating African Liberation Day. And so it's important for us to recognize that when we talk about Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism did not come out of the beginning of African Liberation Day. You know, it's been around for some time, going back into the 19th century. So it's been a while since we've been doing this and recognizing this. So Pan-Africanism is a serious business. And throughout the history of Pan-Africanism, the enemies of the African people have been trying to destroy us, trying to destroy this unity, trying to destroy us getting together to be one Ubuntu, in other words, to recognize Ubuntu. So tonight our forum is our guest is Dr. Coco, Dr. Racion, and you know, he again, let me say to remind you that he has had an accident on his way home, and so he's running late because of that, but he will be on soon. He's going to discuss with us. I hope some of you have seen the flyer and understand what this is all about, and it's a question of whether or not the Pan-Africanism is something that we can handle. We can defend. Whether with all the machinations of the enemies, we are able to hold tight, to hold strong, to maintain the links we have with each other. And Dr. Coco, as you have seen on the flyer, will expound on the factors impacting African identity in the reality of non-African hegemonic forces covertly and overtly maneuvering to prevent unification among Africans. Now, that's my take on what he's going to be saying. He's going to say whatever he has to say by himself. But that's my take, you know, knowing Dr. Coco. And, you know, but this is serious, you know, folks. And so this is how I'm going to open this now. And if anyone wants to say something before Dr. Coco comes on, but before that, let me reintroduce myself. I am Baba Mosi Matsimla. I'm president of the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division 330, UNIA-ACL, that's what's going on tonight. UNIA-ACL Rehabilitating Committee 2020. With me is Vice President
Congo, Africa.
Yes, and
you know, I think we can start out by talking about all our previous fathers and mothers of Pan-Africanism. You know, C.L.R. James, of course, Marcus Garvey, and quite, you know, everybody can name all the people that has preceded us. We're talking about
yeah, that's a long list, bro.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, we got Baba Senghor.
Yeah, I like what
yeah.
Congo. I like what Congo was just saying, because, and like what you said too, Baba. First of all, I'm Baba Senghor, and let's be clear: Pan-Africanism was happening even before the word Pan-Africanism even manifested. Pan-Africanism is actually the connection of African people outside of Africa to people in Africa. That is a fact. That's Pan-Africanism. Now, in 1900, Henry Sylvester Williams coined the terminology Pan-Africanism. And as y'all just articulated, there's a tremendous amount of ancestors who practice Pan-Africanism. There are also various different ideological people who call themselves Pan-Africanists. We in the UNIA, ACL, are universal Pan-African nationalists and are clear that we need a better social order. And y'all can look at them words however you want. But the fact of the matter is, the founders of the UNIA, and Garvey was clearly practicing Pan-Africanism. He said, Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Here in 2025, which Brother Coco is going to help us with tonight, I just want to make it clear that the UNIA has always been practicing Pan-Africanism and not practicing it from a perspective of just talking about it, but doing it. It is important for us to recognize that everybody that uses the term Pan-Africanist is not necessarily a Pan-Africanist unionist or a universal Pan-African nationalist. And some of our people who are caught in nationalism tend to say Garvey wasn't a Pan-Africanist, but I want to correct that. It's a fact that maintains itself. Dr. Clark made it clear, who loved Garvey and also taught Kwame Nkrumah and Malcolm X, who all were Pan-Africanists. And the bottom line is the Pan-Africanism that we're talking about, as Baba Mosey said, it's important for us to recognize where we are today in terms of practicing practical Pan-Africanism. So I'm not going to be a long-winded, but I just wanted to set the tone because I know Brother Coco is going to lay it out for us from a very, very, not just an intellectual, but from a practical perspective of what Pan-Africanism is all about. I know that many of us today that are practicing Pan-Africanists are hopeful that our young people will catch hold to the need to be connected globally. And that seems to be happening, particularly in the Sahel states and certain other places on the continent of Africa, Namibia and other places. And the fact of the matter is, those that were taken out of Africa, which are many of us that are on this call, we want to return to Africa in our mind. So the Pan-Africanism that our international organizer is going to be breaking up for us, Dr. David Horn, will be documented, and we want to make it very plain and clear. The Pan-Africanism that we are dealing with today is practical Pan-Africanism, boots on the ground, boots outside of Africa, doing everything they can to create the African United States, or the United States of Africa, as some people might say, but we like to say the African United States. Marcus Garvey was very clear, and I'm going to yield to that to my queen sister who has her hand up, Baba, while we're waiting on our dear brother, Brother Coco, and we're so happy that he was not injured and that it was just a fender bender and he's on his way. So I'm going to stop right there. I say one God, one aim, one destiny, Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Y'all stay tuned in.
Thank you, Baba. Go ahead, sister.
So I wanted to add another piece to the conversation. If we allow our minds to travel back to our presence on the planet as the original people who eventually migrated all over to every continent, there are people who resist that truth. And I'm speaking specifically about the president of Ivory Coast and how he has been hostile to the Sahel states. How do we address people who are not ready to see an unified diaspora? That was my question.
It's a loaded one too. It's a good one.
Well, you know, there are many answers to that. But first, how we address it, that specifically, I will say, is being unified as a people. Because without the unity, we're going to always have the enemy coming in and bribing those weak ones who are in position to disrupt what could be the unity of our people. There's always going to be that. Remember now, our people, I should say African people, were captured, enslaved, treated in the most inhuman way here in the Americas. And what has happened? They used our people. Some of them were in the plantations, etc. They were called slave drivers. These were the people who were willing to take the whip and whip their own people so that they will work. You've had that in history. We've had people who have betrayed us over and over again. In the history of the UNIA, we've had people who betrayed Garvey.
Judas factor.
The struggle still continues with those people who are willing to betray us. We've got the people who we can call agent provocateurs. They will come in and they will do damage to different things so that it will reflect on us who are trying to do the right thing, keeping our people together. They will pretend they're with us, but then they're going to do something that sooner or later will bring authorities on us and falsify, crimes so that we can be incarcerated. We've had this. So it's got to be unity. It's got to be understanding. And it's got to be educating our people so that the consciousness of our people will be at a very high place so that people coming in with that will be able to recognize.
Race
So-
first.
So
Yeah.
Baba, if I could add, sister, that's a good question you asked, and Baba, you did an excellent job. But if we could look at the history, the facts of it, and look at the Casablanca and the Monrovia group during the time of Kwame Nkrumah, there were some who were afraid to move towards the united Africa continent, and they chose to go against the Casablanca group, Kwame Nkrumah. Some of them later on admitted that they made a mistake, but like Baba said, some let's be clear, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, meaning everybody that's African ain't
That's
really
a good way to put it.
coming from the mind, and they about their individual selves, and they follow a Eurocentric model. So but like you said, my sister, going all the way back to ancient times, that's so important, because when we say Sankofa, we're not just talking about going back to the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about going all the way back. And like Tony Browder puts it, and Dr. Tendai put in the chat, sometimes we got to ignore ignorance, but we also got to call it out for what it is so that our young people don't get confused. Because like I say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And if you look at what's happening on the continent, that's why I use the Casablanca and Monrovia thing, because Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and a couple of other leaders were calling for a united Africa. And then you had those who got their independence that wanted to stay in their own shallows or their own little so-called nation states that was carved up by the European. And so that created the first divisiveness amongst us, thinking that we could have our own Nigeria, our own Ghana, and our own Kenya, and divide it, and then had our own leadership. And then Urugu came in and took advantage of the leadership. As Baba Mosi said, some sold completely out, and some just were ignorant to really what a united Africa was all about. So in 2025, we need to speak truth to power, and sometimes we got to ignore that ignorance, and when it gets in our way, we got to call it out so that our young people don't get confused about really what's going on. Because as Baba Mosi said, it's always going to be around. Garvey had enemies inside his ranks. Nkrumah had enemies in his ranks. Thomas Sankara was killed by his right-arm man. Lumumba had enemies. So many of our leaders, Malcolm, Martin Luther King, many of them had traitors and enemies all around them, but it didn't stop them. We got to keep moving. And I'm going to stop on that point. So the answer to your question is, we cannot allow ignorance or sellouts to stop us from moving forward. And as we move forward, sometimes they have to be exposed. And I like to let Mama Tendai chime in, because she put a answer in the which got me going. if Mama Tendai wanted to add to it, because sister power, that's another big mistake that Black men, African men have made, is they don't allow our African women to rise. And that is a change. Like, look at what's happening in Namibia, for an example. But I'm gonna stop right there and maybe let sister, add to that, if Mama Tendai wanted to come on.
I would just add, I put in there also about Ramaphosa. He's a prime example. He thought that because he was head of state, that he'd be treated with the dignity of head of state. Okay, ignoring what he had been informed, ignoring what he knew, because he lives with those folk. and knows that he has to maneuver in order to stay in position. So he thought he was going to be able to do the same thing. So it was a rude awakening for him. And basically, that's what will happen with the rest of them. And then when it becomes popular, here they come over to the Pan-African side, but it has to be when it's accepted by the mainstream. If not, those folks are not going to be there. And I'm at the point now, and I guess because I'm getting old, I'm saying I'm leaving them alone. I will try. And if they don't seem like they want to come on, I'm moving on to the next one. So, okay, I have to leave them where they are at this point. Those who want to know will seek it out.
Okay.
Mama Julie, it's just like African spiritualism. Folk who are engaged in that do not proselytize.
That is true. Hadn't thought about that. That's true.
It has to be something that one chooses to do with oneself. And that's what it's going to, yeah, and that's what it's going to take with them. We try to educate them, but what they would do if they don't want to be educated, they will always come up with a reason why not. Whatever you present, they're going to counteract it. And so it's what I'm just saying is I don't have the energy now. I got to use all my energy for positive upliftment moving forward.
I'm familiar with a case where an African American person was enthroned into one of the royal families in West Africa and somehow convinced themselves that because he was part of the royal lineage, that he was equal to the king.
Oh, hell no.
And then turned himself into a political asset to be used by NSA to destabilize the particular kingdom that he was enthroned in. So my point is that there may be people who come to an affinity for their African heritage, but somehow find ways to use it to destabilize or discredit the people who have worked so hard for their own liberation in Africa. And that mindset is something to watch out for, I believe.
Exactly, because I'm saying that's been our history, Mama.
Mhm.
No, those of us who were Pan-Africanists couldn't afford to go home.
Right.
It was those who were trying to maintain the status quo and
Right.
be part of the status quo who went to Africa not to see how to uplift people, but to see what they could get.
Right.
Now,
Liberia being one major case of that.
trying to see what they could take and what they
Right.
could get. And so, we know we're going to have those kind of folk among us. We have to be aware and be able to see it
Mhm.
so that we don't get hoodwinked by it
Right.
and then continue on our journey.
Yes, ma'am.
Garvey says some of them ain't no good here, ain't gonna be no good going back home. I mean, it's clear, like Baba Mosi said, and I see Brother Mink with us. Brother Mink, just to update you, we're waiting on Brother Coco. He had a minor fender bender. We talking Pan-Africanism. I know you can talk about it. We were just doing a round robin.
Yeah. Well, anyway, as you can see, what's happening today on the African continent, we've had a stirring that's coming mainly from the youth, I guess, and as I saw in some of the news coming out of Africa today, some of the women are being stirred because the realization is without a leader, without somebody in power who cares about the people, who cares about being unified, who cares about not just that specific province, I should say, or country. It's about the continent and the diaspora. And when you think like that, that's being Pan-Africanist. So they're understanding what's coming out of the mouth of Traore because he is speaking of Pan-Africanism. And we want everybody who's considered themselves African to think in the same way.
So
Being
Baba Mosi,
Pan-Africanist is
Baba
not
Mosi,
just talking though.
Baba
It's about
Mosi,
doing.
One
Yes, sir.
one good example, and I'm not going to be long, but one good example of what you just said is the way people honored Malcolm all around the world.
Yes.
Not only, I mean,
True.
that's a very, very, very good example of what you just said. People waking up and being what some people call woke. You know, Malcolm is a perfect example. Everybody upholding Malcolm, like they should, because Malcolm did everything he could to put us back on the Pan-African connection. But anyway, I'll stop right there. But if you looked at what all the people that were doing stuff on Malcolm, putting statues up in Ghana, doing celebrations all around the world, leading into what you said earlier is African Liberation Day, what I know Mink can talk about because we ain't liberated yet. So we need more than an African Liberation Day, an African Liberation Month. We need African Liberation 24/7.
Yeah. I was trying to answer, in a sense, answer the question from Dr. Julie regarding what can be done about those people who are always willing to betray us, but now I have hope. I was like, where are we really going in Africa? You're seeing all this stuff. You have a coup. You have a change of government, you have something, and the person you expect to do good, the next thing you know, they've gone on the side of the enemy. But what's happening today in Burkina Faso, and let's say the Sahel states, and some others as well, I think Senegal, etc., showing a conscious raising situation is happening. The people are becoming more and more conscious of those outside of the provincial area where they live, and the need for, and what Burkina Faso is doing by bringing people together. It means that Africa, if those three nations, the Sahel states, if they can have that much power, and I call it power because it's extending out, that conscious power, that consciousness power, it's extending out. It needs, and this is just Africa, in one part of Africa, maybe, but maybe in the whole of Africa. The majority of Africa needs to go in the same direction, or we will still be having these people taking us for granted and stealing our resources. Baba Mink, you know what I'm talking about. You're an old soldier.
Yes, the question is, how do you dissolve the borders?
Say, well,
Don't talk about 3 states of the Sahel. Talk about one state, one Pan-African state.
Yeah.
No borders. The unity of the people can only come through mass organization, where people are involved in the actual struggle of what they define as democracy, how they stand beside the group, their family, and speak about what's true spiritualism of the ancestors really mean. What does it mean to reclaim the ancestors' claim to all of Africa? And the rest of our ancestors that are in the diaspora. Now, the way capitalism and imperialism has been operating is that it maneuvers itself into new markets. As it created the new markets in China, and it started recreating the markets in India, they're moving to recreate the markets in Africa. And you can control your resources if you want to, but it's business. It's business we're interested in. But if the people aren't conscious of how that business is organized and how they organize themselves and whether or not they're responsible for that productivity, then it becomes the newest stage of neocolonialism, the advanced stage of neocolonialism under total finance domination, because you can't do anything without the money, without the cash.
Yeah.
If I can leave that there for a little bit.
Yes, indeed. But I mean, I will submit that the reason why we had some people in the leadership of some African states who are continuing to, I mean, stay with the status quo because they're afraid. They're so afraid of changes that will bring so much disruption, and they're losing power as a consequence, that they're just doing whatever comes to them, going with the flow. For instance, you go to the White House and allow yourself to be embarrassed because this person in the White House, they say, he's just coming here begging me for some money or to save his. I was about to say something with 3 words. Save his tail.
But
That,
nationalism,
I can treat him in any old way, like how he treated Zelensky and others. With Africa, with its resources, the Congo. Now, I don't know how much did you know, folks, of what the resources in Burkina Faso was like? Did we understand that? But what we were getting as a picture of Burkina Faso was a desert country, and the French are going in there and helping them out by taking away their resources. Not showing us the picture of what Africa or what Burkina Faso has as power for economics, for development, for trade, for industry. The French were building their own country, their own industry, using the resources of Burkina Faso and other African countries. They're nothing without those countries. This is why this French president is running all over the world, even threatening Russia and China, because he's afraid that they're going to take over these resources that France depends on for its own life.
well, nothing like a new prison in the Amazon.
No, look at that.
Yeah, look at that one.
Look at that. I mean, it's amazing.
The biggest threat is that we got to get all those bases that from the Europeans and the United States not to have any military coalition with people who have oppressed us and will oppress us. And so therefore, I don't think we should have any joint military exercises with them. We need to start developing our own ammunition and tell them to get out, and if we're gonna do anything, we got to do things diplomatically, purely, and above board.
You're being nice, Congo. You're being nice. We want France to give back all that money they took from Haiti. We want it all back. And we could care the least about what's happening with France. Like you say, up you mighty race. We need to accomplish what we will.
Reparations is a demand as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we want, like I said, we want them to give back everything they took from Haiti. And definitely want them out of Africa, period. And not only the French, the British.
Belgium King killed 12 million people in the Congo.
Yes, exactly.
We need reparation for that.
That's right. And still, I mean, to this day, they still are doing it. They're still killing our people. So, we don't trust them nowhere, no kind of way. And I mean, it's time for us to speak truth to power. Brother Mink, you was absolutely on point. We need the masses to wake up and get busy, because all of these token leadership folks, they ain't giving up nothing to the people. They need to be removed.
Yeah, well, Brother Mink, I mean, Baba Congo was speaking about all this development and industrial, I guess, products that we can have in Africa. But I mean, as well as I do, who controls the money. And you're a person who has studied the currency business in the world. And you understand that all this has a lot to do with that matter of international currency movement. we are stuck in Africa so long as we're stuck with that currency movement. Our gold is going up, going to France, to Britain, and other European countries to prop up their currency because that's what they recognize. But they give you their paper. Well, nowadays they give you digital money, and that's even not less concrete than the paper. And then they tell you, hey, you gotta give us back that in order for you to survive, in order for you to get our products. We need to educate. We need education.
Well,
Now,
the
when
value
you
of
have
currency, the value
yeah,
of
that's the
currency,
yeah. Tell
the
me about
value
that
of currency
brother.
is relative to its application to the people, whether or not it serves the people. So we know that in the 50s, late 50s, when France pulled out of Guinea, that they took all the currency and all the metal and all the cars and trains. And so it was Nkrumah who sent 10 million pounds to the PDG for them to be able to have a currency internally. Because if you don't have a currency that you can operate with internally, you don't have an internal economy. We're not talking about currency outside of the country, but currency inside the country. In the same position that Nyerere talked about and Amo talked about, that it's the internal development that brings wealth and development to the people and a consciousness of themselves, not currency from outside. So what are we producing internally that we're exporting? So we look at the history of Burkina Faso and Mali, we realize that they were the garment industry of the world. They were the garment industry of the world in the 1400s. They went to war with the Medici families, became the financial base behind the Vatican. Because people like clothes, and they want different clothes, and they want different colors, and they want different fabrics, and they have different meanings. And all of this came out of that Nubian history between Mali and the Sahel states. And this was one of the effects of slavery, that slavery destroyed the industrial development of the interior of the plateau. And it became the business of the coastal people to buy and sell slaves. How do we have this movie come out from the Ivory Coast recently that shows two competing tribal groups fighting about who's going to sell the slaves? That's our history?
Yeah. But I dare say that until us come person, majority, the masses, as some would say, until we fully understand the extent to which we have to take control of that very same issue you're talking about, man. That is what we produce and how we trade and who's the middleman. And how is it that their currency can have more value than ours? Who is the person who is pricing our products? Who is the person who's controlling the shipping of our product? When we don't have those things in hand, when we don't control for ourselves what we produce, what we ship, what we price, then we'll be marking time. And so this is why at this stage we have all these threats, I think, and I'm speaking here from how I understand. We have all these threats to what Traore is.
When we trade between
and
ourselves.
also asking our people to do as well. Did I
trade between ourselves the value?
Yeah.
The value of our nation, not what we export. That's how the people develop themselves, from their own internal economy, not from being able to sell something to someone else in another country. They become manipulators of the business. They have to join in the finance capital. We saw how it moved. Sékou Touré and the PDG of 1947's hardest conflict was controlling the borders so they didn't destroy the economy internally. Amul was killed as the economic advisor to Nyerere because he called for internal development. Internal development, an economy where the people feed and serve what they need for themselves, not something they have to buy from some foreign state somewhere else. That we have to stop. And then as Trump is doing with tariffs, that's where this tariff idea comes in, a way to balance the value between one country and another country, and the export and import of commodities and services.
Yeah.
If we don't make it, we don't need it.
So that's a point you made there, my brother, that tells us that when we look at the history of enslavement of our people, a lot of our people identify as the skilled people where we were. Those were the ones who were needed and were stolen. Those who understood agriculture, who can plant rice, who knows how to deal with rice, agriculture, the ironworks. Those people were taken to build stuff in the plantations. They helped to build the milling instruments of the plantations. Iron workers. You think it's just people who are going in there and when they show you agricultural, you just have a machete cutting cane? No. Those were the people who had the skill to create sugar, the cane juice, boiled, or whatever. They stole our property, meaning our skill property of our skills to develop themselves. Had it not been for Africa, where would France be? Talk about thieves.
Where would the world be? You're right.
Well,
where would the whole world be?
I mean, look what they did to Haiti. You know, it's to this day, and this is why I'm hoping when Dr. Cole will come, he will comment on the psychology of this, because he as a neuroscientist, you know, understanding and having the experience of dealing with different things, dealing with how the brain works, and you have to understand how it is that we who are African people, how we're interconnecting, how we're communicating, I should say as well, and how we look on each other in recognition that I am African and you're African. How do you respect that? Do we respect it? When I see you as a Black man or a Black woman, do I see you as someone that I can be proud to be part of in the community? Or do I see you and hate myself because somebody has said that you are below, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and other people are above you?
But this is
One
the
of the
position.
people that do not know anything about Garyism, they say, oh, you want for us to go back to Africa. Africa is the richest continent, even though they've been stealing stuff from us for more than 200 years, 400 years. And we're still rich. But the thing is, we don't think that we're rich. And then we don't act like we're rich. And then we don't take advantage of all the resources that we have because of our divisions. You know, we have 54 different countries. And what will make us strong is that if those 54 countries became one, this country is powerful because there's 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, poor, big, small.
With land.
Do anything. We have more land. All of the United States can fit in the Sahara Desert and still some. That's how much land we got.
Chief Foday told me the other day, there's more than enough land in every nation state for all the Africans around the world. And not only that, we are a resource. I want to get back to that, to what Mink was saying, because it's critical that we get back to who we are in our mind and understand the power that we have to be connected to our ancestors and then to emulate that real life by controlling the land. And the first land we need to control is Africa, period. And that's what Garveyism is about.
Yes, that is so very true in essence. But again,
We have a diaspora that's enormous. We have the largest diaspora in the world. Are we connecting with it? It's really important to recognize that in 1970, the Pan-African Secretariat operated out of Guyana. And to understand that most revolutions that have brought change were a result of finance capital from other microstates. So people in the diaspora had to organize internationally in order to confront this particular enemy within. Right now, we know the statistics are saying in the finance capital jargon that Africa is the new middle class of the world. Well, that's not necessarily Pan-African, but they put it under Pan-Africanism, and they've made Pan-African banks, Pan-African railroads, and Pan-African this and Pan-African that. But that's where you use nationalism to still keep the people divided, and why coming to the position of federalism is the first mark in bringing the unity back together, where states can do that, as we see in the Sahel right now.
Right.
But the people's mass organization must build internally. The people must be confronting their own internal conflicts in mass meetings and being willing to stand up and say the truth as they've known it, to reflect the history of their ancestors.
Shake out the Diop.
Yeah.
Shake out the Diop. Federate. Turn the confederations into one federated Africa for Africans at home and abroad. As you said earlier, one Africa, no borders.
Yeah, well, you know, that Kwame Nkrumah, they had to get rid of him because that was his voice.
Yeah, well, Samir Nkrumah thinks the same
Until the
way.
rest of Africa is free, Ghana is still not free. I mean, must work towards going to that point, to that place where Africa is together. I mean, it will take a lot to educate a continent as large as Africa to be looking at one. You know, let's face it, we're human beings, and we're always seeing differences. And like people in the rest of the world, it's gonna be like color. It's gonna be like the way you speak your language, and when it isn't like that, some people will even mark themselves. You know, we've had scarifications, you know, to show where you're different, where, you know, you belong to this and you belong to that. How are you going to get that part of the culture within Africa to come, well, I wouldn't say remove, but to understand that being just a little group of people and being proud of your name and doing all that stuff is not going to take us where we need to be. And so the education of Africa is absolutely necessary, even if it comes out of Africa. And let's face it, it has been coming out of Africa, because the Europeans in Africa teaching French, going with the French colonialism, going with the French type of education, with the British type of education, the Portuguese, and now they weren't teaching the people in their colonies to think Africa, to think of self, to think of uniting, to think of developing. I mean, there was no development going on. So education is very, very important right now in Africa, so that people, and I mean, let's face it, I mean, some Africans will tell you, man, what are you talking about? We've got all these scientists, we got this person, we got that person. Drop in the bucket when you come to the population of Africa. And there's a need to make it something concrete. when it comes to education. We need our universities to think, like Brother Meg was saying, internally, develop internally. Not just, I mean, in the countries as it is, we have to understand, I mean, let's face it, the reality is we're not together. The reality is we got borders. The reality is, how do we make our minds, we raise from our minds that there are borders and they're unseen. They're not, the demarcation of those borders are invisible. How do we let people to understand? To go back into the old days, when you walk everywhere, you didn't have a border. You might, listen, there is a necessity to make our African people, not just in the continent, but throughout the world, to understand and to recognize that we have to think as one. We have to come together. And I'm sure that, Dr. Coco, has something that because he has, I mean, when he says the reality check, this is exactly what he means. Check yourself. Understand what these Europeans have been doing to us.
So
Understand
I'm-
and see what it is.
have y'all checked back on Coco? Because it seems like we're gonna have to reschedule because it's like 9:15. So I'm sure we're gonna have to reschedule him.
We may have to because he's still on scene.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, well we're gonna have to reschedule him.
Yeah.
Because I know he got some science par excellence to drop on us. But so far though, Baba Mosley, you've been doing good and everybody's contribution has been great. So to all the listeners out there, y'all know it's not about one of us, it's about all of us. And that's what Brother Coco is going to tell us anyway. Get our minds back in order so that we can connect. I know he's going to do that. You know he is.
Relax with that. All right. Well, okay. I've been doing a lot of talking, and I think it's time for me to maybe zip up and go towards let's hear some female power.
Baba Mosley,
Yes, sir.
can somebody talk about some books to read for the next generation who'll be listening to this on the Learning Channel? What books, if you have a book list that you could just think of off the cuff?
I don't have if we talking
Well,
Pan-Africanism.
I'll tell you like this though, get all the Kwame Nkrumah's books, get all books written on Thomas Sankara, get all Marcus Garvey books, get all Dr. Clark's books. All of those are great books to get. And I know, Haru, you want us to pin it down, but all of those names, they got tons of books. And all those books point us in the right direction. Definitely read Malcolm X, read Malcolm X's autobiography so that you can get your mind back, because that's critical. If you don't got a mind, you ain't going to follow, your behind ain't going nowhere. You got to have the right mind. Otherwise, your behind is going the wrong direction. That is a fact. Get with Dr. Tony Browder. I call him doctor because he's Dr. Karakamoon. Tony Browder, he's doing a webinar right now on Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark was a teacher of Kwame Nkrumah and a teacher of Malcolm X and a follower of Marcus Garvey.
Dr. Ben.
Right, there you go, Dr. Joseph Ben Jokanan. Get him. Get all of Tony Martin's works, not just his works on Garvey. Get all of Tony Martin. Get Runoko Rashidi's books. Y'all need them. We got so many people who have done documentations on our legacy. Our ancestors are actually pushing us in the right direction, and we need to get our minds together so our behinds can follow what they did. Period.
Yeah, because it's all about consciousness, and let's think. Shake on the jump.
Yes, absolutely. And read books. Learn about Patrice Lumumba. Yeah. You gotta get involved with brothers and sisters. Julius Nyerere. All of these brothers and and not only that, get some of the sisters' works. Because Amy Jocks Garvey, she laid it all out. Study Amy Ashwood Garvey. She was a Pan-Africanist. I mean, there's so many.
Frances Cress
Welsing, Drusilla Dundry, Marimba Ani. So all of y'all that's listening, all those names I got, y'all, they will put you back in your right mind.
And if you buy the Black Seed calendar, they have the biggest list of books that everybody should read in their lifetime.
Yeah, do get the Black Seeds calendar, and even if it's not this year's calendar, you can get whatever calendar going backwards, and you're getting history out of it. You're getting not just I mean the history of in the calendar, what dates things have happened and all that stuff in the African world, you know. Plus, you're going to get those books that you should read to raise your consciousness and to educate you about the history of African people.
Exactly.
There's nothing like it. Get hold of it.
And you can get a lot of these books we talking about from Brother Nachi, Everyone's Place. Just Google Everyone's Place in Baltimore. Just Google Black Classic Press. You know, Third World Press. You know, they got tons of books out there that brothers and sisters can get. In fact, it's so many books on my bookshelf. Once in a while, just don't read a book once. Go back to that book. Go back to that book.
Yes.
As Garvey taught us.
Remember everything you read. Yeah.
Exactly. You got to reread. You got to reread. Yeah. So you're right, Baba Mosi. And then those of us that are here, you know, I got a book. Y'all can get my book. You learn a little bit about the UNIA, you know. So, but the
there you go. Learn about Division 330, the history of UNIA Division 330 in Washington D.C.
And then, and Baba, and look,
right
and Baba Mosi vends books. Baba Mosi is a book dealer, a bookseller, been a bookseller. So he got tons of books.
Yeah, you can call me. You can call me. I'll see what I got. You know, mainly Garvey books. You know, but that's it. Yeah, but folks, be serious. If we're going to understand the situation we're in, we have to understand by what has happened in the past, the history of African people.
And you have to read The Miseducation of the Negro.
Absolutely.
That's number one.
Yeah, right. Good one, Tony. Congo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I know there are tons of books. Also, as we're talking about Pan-Africanism.
The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams.
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. I mean, there are lots of books. And like we said earlier, get that Black Seeds calendar.
Yes, and you can get a whole list of them.
And we don't have to tell you about these different books. You just get anyone in there, including their children's books.
Yes.
You know, raise the consciousness of your children.
And go to Sankofa.
Go to early in life.
If you're in the DMV, go to Sankofa Books. They got, like Baba Mosi said, not only the books we talking about, they got books for children that are broken down so they can bring, you know, African-centered books.
Definitely. And it's important that children are aware early in life. You know, children must be aware of who they are. And this is all, I think, the consciousness issue that we're talking about. And what Dr. Coco, as you know, folks, we are going to reschedule this this forum with Dr. Coco. It's unfortunate that he's had that accident and is still on the site of the accident, and so he can't be here with us. And we, in a few minutes, we'll close out. But let's face it, we still had a nice discussion. It was beautiful listening to your opinions, and you know, it's what we need. A lot more like this, our own opinions. And we had this tonight. We didn't schedule it like that, but we've had a good one. And
also, Baba,
sometimes like this.
Baba, you mentioned May as African Liberation Month. So y'all, you know, African Liberation Day is being celebrated all around the world, just like Malcolm's birthday. You got ALDs online. You got ALDs in Baltimore, in New York, all over the place. So we want to make sure y'all understand that you don't all have to think the same, but we all got to move the same way. In other words, we all can add something. As Runoko said, everybody can do something. So go check out ALD.
That's how we stay linked.
That's right.
That's how we stay linked, you know, getting, celebrating, commemorating those things that are African, those things that relate to us. Ubuntu.
Yes.
let's go in that direction. All right, folks. Thank you very much for being here. I will close it out now. And our next
See,
we'll
Baba,
Dr. Cooper next
Baba
month.
Mosley, I know you're closing out, Baba Mosley, but while we got people, I want to let people know too, don't forget your ancestors on June the 14th, right here in the DMV at Anacostia, Adasi. Walk
Oh,
to the
yeah.
river. Remember your ancestors. And remember, they are very much alive, y'all. So all y'all listening out there, don't think for a minute that you can do it by yourself. You got to connect to your ancestors. Set up your altars, and y'all can come out and support Adasi on the 14th if you're in the DMV. And if not, pray wherever you're at. Pour some libation, call on your ancestors.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, all right. Okay.
Mama
Folks,
Tendai say, come to Union Temple Baptist Church. Union Temple in 14th and W Street Southeast. I think it's starting around 9:30. That's before we go to the river. All right, Baba, I just wanted to throw that in there for those people listening.
and for those folks who were trying to get on to the Facebook page, we apologize for that Facebook issue. We've had some technical
But
problems.
we will upload this YouTube
But
to
yes,
Facebook.
well, that's what I'm trying to say. It's on YouTube. We uploaded it. It's already there. So please spread the word to those folks who might have tried to get onto a Facebook page. And right now we're speaking here now because we're on the Zoom, but it's also being streamed on YouTube right now.
Haru is saying something. What you say, Haru?
Yeah.
Posted the link on the YouTube on the Facebook page.
You posted the link on the Facebook page.
That's for the Black Learning Channel.
Okay, good.
Oh,
you put the link on because I was letting people know that they could go there. You put the link on. That's good. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Yes, indeed. So, folks, we're scheduling Dr. Cooper perhaps this month.
Yeah.
So we'll come back again. This June. Listen, African liberation is current, no matter what part of the year. So the fact is, also, when we talk about African liberation, we're talking about what? Pan-Africanism being together for African liberation. So Pan-Africanism can come back any time of the year with this discussion is current. It is so current when you consider what is happening in Africa today. The machinations of the European enemy of the African people is at a high level right now. You listen, in their minds, Africa must not be free. You listen to how the Trump president, when he talks about certain countries, and he says, so long as I'm president, that country will never have so. Yeah. What do you think they're saying about Africans? Right? You will never have the power to, I guess, manipulate the currency of the world. You'll never have that power. We're not going to let it go. But we have to show them. If you need, listen, we have to be willing, like some people in the world today, they're being crucified, but they're still fighting. African people have to show that we are willing to sacrifice for our freedom, to sacrifice for our well-being, to sacrifice for the diaspora. So thank you very much again. And until next time, let me close with our motto of the UNIA-ACL. One God, one aim, one destiny,
one
Africa.
One Africa.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Yes. Hello, my